Welcome to Trail Manners, the podcast so dedicated to mountain trails and running that they broadcast out of a 78 Volkswagen bus in the mountains. Who does that? Eric and Joel are your hosts and will bring you the trail life as you may have not heard it before. You hear about everything from gear reviews, nutrition to keep you upright and moving forward, and they'll even bring guests into the bus for conversations that you won't hear anywhere else. It's time for some running adventures on a higher elevation. The old 78 Volkswagen bus is fired up and headed to the mountains. Here are your hosts for Trail Manners, proudly representing the 801 with their passion and love for the trails, Eric Manning and Joel Hatch.
Welcome to the Trail Manners Podcast, episode number 78. Today, Joel Hatch will be talking with Gina Lucrezi of Trail Sisters from Boulder, Colorado. So if this is your first time listening, then thanks for coming. The Trail Manners Podcast is produced every week for enjoyment, and show notes are found at trailmanners.com. Come back often, and please feel free to add the podcast to your favorite RSS feed or iTunes. You can also follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Trail Manners. All links are in the show notes. Now let's get after it.
All right, welcome to episode 78 of the Trail Manners Podcast. I am your host, Joel Hatch. Eric Manning, he's not here today. We're trying this new fancy eCam, and it's usually best if there's only one person doing the interview. So I'm your host for today. So for episode 78, we have straight from Boulder, Colorado, Gina Lucrezi. Did I say that right again?
You got it. Good job.
All right. Awesome. So those of you who don't know Gina, and you should, she is from Bangor, right? Pennsylvania.
Correct.
All right. Lives in Boulder, Colorado now.
Maybe for not too much longer, though, so we'll see.
All right. So we can maybe touch on that in a little bit. Man, you have an extensive background, and I'm just going to read this off real quick. So you grew up in Pennsylvania. Were you a cross-country runner in high school?
I was, but as a sophomore, junior, senior, I was a field hockey player for about 6 or 7 years. That was my first true love in sports, I guess.
And then you made that transition into running. Thank goodness you did, because you were quite successful. You went on to run in college. After college, you moved out west. You had an internship at, was it USOC that you had an internship?
Correct. Yeah, I always dreamed of trying to work with the Olympic Committee, and I was very honored when I applied for an internship and I got picked, and it was pretty much a dream come true. So a really cool thing.
I'm sure that would be freaking anybody's, right? Anybody's dream is to get a job there. That's especially if you have a sports background. After your internship, you've got a host of jobs. You're the former marketing superstar, right, at Innovate, former team manager at Innovate, former ad sales at Trail Runner magazine. That's kind of a big magazine, I think. Former business development manager at iRun FAR. So you're pretty much responsible for their success today.
I don't know about that.
Former athlete and events manager at Jewelbo USA. Now, currently, you're team manager at Vask Footwear, and also the athlete, event, and social media manager at Ultimate Direction. And finally, you're the founder of Trail Sisters. That is a mouthful of a resume. That's super awesome.
Oh, well, thank you. And hey, first off, thanks so much for having me on the show as well. So I'm excited to speak with you.
It's our pleasure. We've been talking about it for the last couple months. Our schedule's been super stacked with people, and it just happened that, this was kind of serendipitous. That really cool article came out yesterday that you wrote, or that interview about you, why you should have a trail sister. And now this episode's going to air next week. So it was meant to happen right now.
Right. The stars aligned.
Okay. So looking back at your resume, did I miss anything? Do I need to give you credit for anything that I did not say?
No, I think you were pretty spot on. That was very good.
Well, I'm just going off of your Facebook profile, so yeah, you got quite the resume. It's pretty awesome. I think that, we kind of need to back up a little bit further. You and I first were introduced to each other when you were looking to update one of your websites, and a mutual friend of ours, Tara
Hmm.
Warren, had hooked me up with you, right?
Correct. Yeah, that was when I was using a Squarespace site for a while when I had first started the Trail Sisters, and I learned fairly quickly that it wasn't. I needed much more of a site because the site was growing so quickly, and the popularity of it and what women were asking for. So yeah, and I hear you're the guy that, if you need a website, you need things mocked up, ideas, fixes, go to you. And so yeah, Tara was super helpful with that. And ironically, my boyfriend ended up being quite curious with website building, and he kind of jumped on board. Otherwise, I would have been giving you the shout.
And that's okay. I appreciate all those kind words. And sometimes it's best to have somebody in house doing it because those edits are easier to take care of instead of calling me or texting me or emailing me. So I'm glad that
Right.
you got that all squared away. And Squarespace is still, it's a rad platform. You use it for your personal site and there's nothing wrong with it, but sometimes it doesn't meet the need. And you're right. Sometimes you just got to find that right platform to support what you're trying to do. So I'm glad you guys got that squared away finally.
Hmm. Yes.
Awesome. So we kind of alluded to this already. So you weren't really like running wasn't your first love. It was field hockey, right?
Correct.
And
Hmm.
then you got into running. So how'd you get into it in the high school scene? Was it just to stay in shape for field hockey?
Well, my field hockey coach used to have us she'd time us in the mile, and we all hated it. We just wanted to play field hockey. We didn't really want to run, even though it's a huge part of it. And I would, do quite well at this timed mile, and then the track coach essentially learned about it the one day and said, you should try out for track and do this, that, and the other thing. So I did, and I ended up breaking our school record as a freshman in the mile. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'm okay at this running thing. And that's kind of where it took root. So I ran track throughout high school, and then I juggled field hockey and cross country. Then I guess we had it in the fall. So for the sophomore junior year. So I'd go to field hockey. I'm sorry, I'd go to cross country practice first. It was just me and one other girl and 5 guys. We had a really tiny team. And then after practice was over, I'd meet up with our field hockey squad, which boasted of 40 plus women. It was
Wow.
quite popular back east. Yeah. And yeah, and then I do the rest of practice with them. I'd always miss out on the running because I had done that part with the cross country team,
Right.
but yeah, so it was quite interesting. But I loved sport, and I wasn't going to give up field hockey because I really liked the team atmosphere, and the cross country was a blast, but it was more of an individual thing. And yeah, I was just having fun with it because it was going well, and it was fun to run, on the trails and such. So yeah, so that's kind of how that started.
So did you guys have a bunch of trails there around town that you guys can run on?
Back in Bangor, Pennsylvania, we didn't. The Appalachian Trail is actually quite close by, but we'd never jump on anything like that. They were
Right.
usually, if anything, like golf courses or just the school grounds, running around fields and things like that. We weren't on any type trails that I run on now. That's for sure. Definitely nothing as aggressive or intense.
True. So throughout your high school, then you're just getting better every year, just because you're putting effort in, you're maturing, you're being a better runner. So then did that open the door up to college then to run into college?
Correct. I'd done quite well in high school, and then I went to Sales University, which is a pretty small D3 school, arts focused really, in Allentown, Pennsylvania area, if you're familiar. But yeah, I did cross country, indoor track, and outdoor track, and ended up walking away being a 10-time All-American. And I was lucky enough to win a national championship in the indoor mile my junior year. So it was running was everything. I went to school for TV film. It's my undergrad degree, and it was great. But I just loved the sport aspect. So so
That's
yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
So you walk away from college and you've got your degree in TV, kind of like communications?
Yeah, I worked freelance for quite a while after school, and I actually went to the Athens Olympics. What was it, 2004, and worked with NBC doing stuff with the gymnastics squad, so helping with their filming and whatnot. So it was pretty cool. Freelance was fun, but after a while, I realized it wasn't for me, which is why I went back to school to get a master's in sports management. But
And where was that at?
that was at East Stroudsburg University, so also in Pennsylvania, but it was about 20 minutes from where I grew up. So to save money, I'd stay at home and I just drive back and forth. But I was lucky enough to get 2 graduate assistantships, one working with the cross country and track team, and one also working with the sports management department. So that pretty much paid for my master's degree. And
Wow.
yeah, I try to be strategic and think things out before I jump into them. So, but it was a great experience. And in order to complete the degree, I had to have an internship. And that's, what took me out to Colorado Springs for the Olympic Committee.
So what was that official internship in?
I actually worked, it was just a marketing role with the USA Field Hockey, NGB, the national governing body, because there's so many different internships they offer, and they kind of place you based on, your background and what you're interested in. And so I was lucky enough to kind of bring back my field hockey roots and work marketing with them. But it was amazing. We all stayed on campus. So it's kind of like class. You feel like you're back in college because you're with probably about 25 people. And so you live in a dorm. But I got to meet so many cool people: Dina Castor, Shalane Flanagan, Michael Phelps. I mean, you name it.
Wow.
They'd come in for all kinds of things, and that is on the campus. And yeah, you'd see them walking around the cafeteria and just doing their thing. But you try not to be, starry-eyed and kind of, drooling. But but it was a really cool experience.
That's pretty rad. So during your graduate school career, are you continuing to run at that point, or did that kind of fall away to focus on your studies?
I was still running. I, was still hoping to compete at a really high level post college, but I didn't have the training that I had in college. I didn't have the same type coaching. It was more, obviously it was on my own then, and yeah, so kind of dwindled. Like I said, I still wanted to be competitive, and my goal or my dream was to always make a USA track and field team. So I did a few races that, I would go to Rhode Island, and I think that's where they'd have like the 5K championships and whatnot, but I never had a great race. So I kind of just lost touch with that, and, just would do races for fun at that point.
Right. So you come out to Colorado Springs, and you're, hanging out with all these super high level athletes, basically the best in the world. How did you then meet Nancy Hobbs? And then once you tell us that story, also tell us who she is.
Sure. Yeah. So my internship ended at the OTC, and I was in love with Colorado and the mountains and everything. It was just amazing.
Oh yeah, so tell me about that real quick. So back up and tell us about that. So what was your experience coming from Pennsylvania out to Colorado Springs? Was that just like, holy cow?
Exactly. I'd never seen a mountain before that had snow on top of it, or that was like a rocky top. That's what I call them, at least. I mean, I had the Appalachian, mountains right in my backyard, the Poconos, and had been on the Appalachian Trail here and there, but I mean, it's covered in trees, and
Yeah.
they look, compared to out here, they look like rolling hills. And the Appalachian Mountains are amazing, nothing to take away from them, but it is a 180 difference. And it just kind of blew my mind, and I fell in love with it and kind of felt like this is where I want to be. And so yeah, so I wanted to hang around after my internship finished. I had the privilege of working at the facility a little bit longer as kind of a fill-in, because this was then, I think, during the Beijing Games, I believe. And I worked as the recovery center manager, and kind of would help athletes as they come in to, they come in for contrast baths, massages. They'd work with some of the scientists there, and I just kind of managed, schedules. So it was a little job, but it kept, a little money in my pocket, kept me out there, and allowed me to, kind of follow my passion in just training at altitude and such. And one day I ran into Nancy Hobbs. She knew the woman that I was working with at USA Field Hockey, and Nancy knew I was a runner because of my past, and she's like, you should give trail running a try. And I was kind of like, okay, I've always been interested, but I was taught, trails could be dangerous and bad, and if you twist your ankle, you can't run fast on the track.
Oh yeah,
So,
that's true.
So it was always kind of like this, like, don't go there, but I was always super curious. And so Nancy, who's the founder of the American Trails Association, she's all over the place. She works with the USATF. She helps with the Mutt Council, which is the Mountain Ultra Trail. She's done so much for the sport. It's amazing. So to have her speak to me and kind of introduce me to trail running was amazing. She took me up this trail in Colorado Springs called Section 16, and anybody that's familiar with it knows it's a lung burner, and you feel it in your legs quite quickly because it's very steep, very quick. And she kicked my butt because I was running roads, and I tried to run roads like I tried to run trail.
Oh
and
yeah.
that doesn't work. You have
No.
to take small steps, small strides when you climb, not, these big long strides. And I was curious about it, and kind of ever since that run, I was hooked. So she also happened to have extra rooms in her house, and so I kind of rented a room from her over the summer, and I also had the chance to meet a guy named Howard Nipper who was also renting another room. And Howard Nipper, yeah, he's an accomplished ultra runner. I know he loves the 50s and 100Ks. He's a magnificent man, and
Right.
so that's when I first learned about ultras. But at that time, I was very much into the shorter distance running.
Right.
But it was always interesting to hear Howard's stories and listen about what he had done. But yeah, that's kind of how I met Nancy and got into trail running. And then I was out on the trails every day in Colorado Springs, and
Right.
it had me. That was it.
That's pretty strong. That pull, like I kind of had that same feeling when I moved out to the West. It was like, oh my gosh,
Mm-hmm.
now I get it. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, like you said, there's nothing wrong with the East Coast trails and the Appalachian trails. They're super rad, but it is a 180 difference out here. They're bigger, they're longer, they're not any more steep or technical than the East Coast, but man, there's just something about those big views that just kind of suck you in, right?
Totally.
Yeah, I love it. That's a great story. How you met Nancy, how you met Howard too. That guy, he's a legend.
Yeah, he's fantastic. We keep in touch a little bit. He's out in Virginia and I'm out here, but every once in a while we'll share stories and text and whatnot. But yeah, he's a great man. So I wish him the best.
That's really cool. So you get done with your internship. You're working. So where do you transition from working for the Olympic Committee into kind of like trail running centric, trail specific companies? How did that happen?
Well, I knew running had played such a large role in my life up to this point. Back in Bangor, Pennsylvania, everybody knew me as Gina the runner, and same through college. I didn't move like home.
Was that on your Letterman's jacket, Gina the runner?
I know it should have been, but I went to college about an hour away from where I grew up, so it just running and words Gina and running were kind of, they were attached, and that was my world, and I knew more about that than I knew about anything. And I think it was the sales rep at Innovate at the time. He was speaking to me at some local race I had tried doing, because Nancy's like, you should do some racing, and I did the bar trail race and a few other things, and they were amazing. I met him, and he's like, hey, I don't know how he struck up the conversation, but he told me that Innovate was looking for, some marketing help and something in CS. And I had just finished my master's degree, and I felt like there was a shelf life. I needed to find a job to utilize it. And the only hiccup was that I had to move to Massachusetts for the job. And that was one of the toughest things. It was important that I used my degree, and because that was the whole point of going to school and getting education. And I didn't want to leave the mountains. And I was like, hey, I've never been to Massachusetts, it could be cool.
Right.
So I went. I got lucky, the job worked out. Innovate at that time, there was four of us. Lisa, who she was the owner of the US distributing service, so she was there full time. And then it was me who was full time, and I was doing everything from CS to marketing with the tiny budget that we had to, the containers would roll in with the shoes. I'd help unload the containers.
Right.
You name it, I did it. And then the other two people who were part-time was, an accountant, and then a guy that would come at the end of the day to help do some of the shipments from the warehouse. So I was at Innovate for the US at the very get-go. And it was trial by fire, and, learning all the steps about it. I'd work with the sales reps and such, inside sales. There was nothing at this point in my life, there's nothing somebody could throw at me that I wouldn't understand from that experience. So it was very, very kind of scary and intense at the time, and very stressful, but it really prepared me for everything else that's come later. So I was there for about 2 years.
So give us a time frame. What year was that?
Oh, that's a great question. I think that was 2007 maybe.
Okay.
Hold on. I'm gotta think. I'm like, I should know, it's not that hard of a thing to figure out.
Well, you can
It was
ballpark
more
it.
like, I'm sorry. It was more like 2010, 2011.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Sorry
Okay, yeah,
about that.
that's
I was
2007
going
to 2000. That is a bigger difference. But
Yeah.
so at that point, oh man, so Innovate wasn't terribly big in the US at that time.
No, not at all. They, let's see. Wayne Eady was the owner. I believe he's still the owner, from the UK. And Lisa, her name was Lisa Mickelson. She had split the ownership of the US distributing service with Wayne, and
Hmm.
ended up, while I was there at that time frame, selling her half back to him, so
Right.
that the UK then would own, the US distributing service. And they actually had some guys from the UK come over within this time frame while I was there, and manage the office and everything. By the time I had left, I believe they had 10 new hires. So it went from 2 full-timers to 10, full-timers. And while I was there, it was Lisa and I that went to, Lisa was really into CrossFit, and so she had me come with her, and we'd go do CrossFit sessions at CrossFit New England. And they were really into the shoes, and that's kind of where
Oh,
Innovate got that, traction with CrossFit, was really because of CrossFit New England and seeding shoes to some of their athletes. And since this was quite some time ago, CrossFit wasn't as big. There was still a lot of
right.
grassroots growth, and it took off like wildfire. And
Yeah.
CrossFit New England at the time was quite a large, they call them box,
Yeah.
quite a large box, very important and influential. So, a lot of people looked up to them, and they saw the shoes. And, before you knew it, selling Innovate's CrossFit athletes was kind of more of and we were probably doing that more than selling the trail shoes, and
Right.
marketing went that way for a while. And I think now, I believe Innovate's kind of come back to its roots with trail running and trail.
Right.
But it was a really interesting, our growth in 2 years was huge because of it. And
Yeah.
then of course Reebok came in and bought the whole thing,
Yeah,
the
they
whole
did.
thing. But it
That's
was,
so interesting to see that you had that connection and that inside track to that explosion of,
Mhm.
that 2010 era of CrossFit when it was just kind of really taking off. And you guys were driving the shoes to that box, and that's how it blew up. That's a
Mhm.
great story.
Mhm. It's just interesting, just where you end up and how things work out. And
Yeah.
it was a cool part of my life. at that time, I feel like my neck was like 3 sizes as large from doing all like it was ridiculous doing some of the CrossFit stuff. My quads, but when, that was a priority for us to really influence that market. And so to be a part of it, in terms of, believing in what you're selling, we went there and we do the workouts, and, I didn't feel too much like a runner after a while because my body was morphing, but it was kind of fun to switch it up for the time being.
Right. That's pretty rad. So you're back there. When you were back in New Hampshire, did you then take on the role of team manager for Innovate, or did that come about at some other point?
The first year, I believe Mark Lundblad was still doing it the first year, and then I don't remember exactly how it switched around, if we had budget cuts or whatnot, but then I ended up bringing, that role came in-house, and that's when I ended up kind of managing the team. That was my first my first opportunity, the first time I had ever done anything like that, and it was quite interesting. I remember I think I upset some people the one year because CrossFit was taking such a role within the business. We had to bring on some CrossFit athletes, and we only had so much budget and product. And I remember I was put in the position of having to, let some great runners, let them go from the team, and they weren't happy. And it's like, my hands are tied. Like, I had direction from the top to make a CrossFit team. And so it was interesting, but, you just, like I said, you go through all kinds of stuff that shapes you, and it was fun at the same time. I'm glad I had the opportunity.
Well, yeah, because that prepared you for something, further down the line that you're doing, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So how did you then transition from Innovate to Trail Runner Magazine?
So, I was dying to get back to Colorado. I missed the sunshine. I missed the mountains. I would travel up from Massachusetts to New Hampshire almost every weekend in the summer to either race or just to go run in the mountains. I would stay with Paul Kirsch, if you've heard of Paul Kirsch. He runs a lot of the junior USATF Mountain Ultra Trail programs and such. And he was great. He'd let me come in, and I'd crash down in their basement because they had a bed down there and whatnot. And there was another family homestay, Frank and his wife, Frank Holmes. They would let me stay. So that was the only way I was surviving being in Massachusetts, having this, runaway to New Hampshire on the weekends. So it was inevitable that my time in Massachusetts wouldn't be very long because I just missed Colorado. And through my work at Innovate, I had met at the time Cynthia Brueggemann, who was the ad sales manager at Trail Runner Magazine. And we had talked, and I told her, "Oh, I'm so jealous you're out in Colorado. I miss it, blah, blah, blah." And she kind of led on that they were going to be hiring, an assistant for her. And I was like, "Oh, really?" And that piqued my interest because I was willing to do anything to get back to Colorado.
Right.
And so later that year, I actually met up with her and the publisher at Big Stone. So Trail Runner is owned by Big Stone Publishing, and I met up with them in Carbondale, had a little interview, and, sure enough, got the gig. And, a month later or whatever it was, 2 months later, I was, packing up my Xterra and driving out to Carbondale, Colorado. And it's amazing because Carbondale is, I don't know, like maybe 7,000 people large. Right. It's super tiny. In Massachusetts, I lived in Natick, which is outside of Boston, but it's gigantic. So they're extreme opposites. But yeah. I didn't care. I wanted to be back in the sunlight and experience the mountains, and so that's how that happened.
Wow, that's a great story too. So you spent some time there, and then where was your next stop after that? Oh, it was with iRun Far.
Mm-hmm.
Or was that kind of like, did that coincide at the same time, or was that two separate things?
Oh, definitely two separate things. So 2 weeks after I started at Trail Runner, Cynthia decided to move on from Trail Runner, so I took over her role as the advertising manager. So that was another trial by fire.
Yeah.
I was hoping to learn how to do ad sales, and from her, and I had about, I think, a month of time spent with her, and then, but I picked it up and it went well. I was there for 2 years, and what I realized that I really just wanted to go play professional runner for a year of my life.
That's awesome.
It sounds ridiculous, but I had such
No,
a great, yeah.
that's
I'm
awesome.
like most people probably think I'm nuts, but my parents did. But
Well, that's okay.
yeah, that's what I figure. You live once, right?
Exactly. I mean, you had
But
some good results too leading up to that time frame. It wasn't like, oh, I'm just kind of getting into this for the fun of it. No, you were the real deal.
yeah, well, thank you. Like when I did graduate college, I looked into trying to pursue running in a more professional manner. And at that time, before I took a job and did some freelance, I did contact Frank Gagliano at the time, and he was working with, used to be the Nike farm team out in California, and I was going to potentially go there or go work with Indiana Invaders in Indiana and such. And I got a job, and I went to school to get an education and have a career. So that's what I did. But it always bothered me. I never had the chance to really just pursue running. And though the D3, just sales was great, my coach was excellent, I always kind of wondered what it would have been like if I would have been at a big D1 program where there was lots of money and lots of opportunity, to do more with the athletes. And so it was always kind of like this thing that bugged me. So I finally saved up some money from the jobs I'd been at, and Trail Runner Mag was great, but I just wanted more free time to just train. And they want you in the office and do the thing, which rightfully so, that's up to them. And we kind of just parted ways. I thanked them for the opportunity, and I had landed a deal with PepsiCo, which is a whole other long story, but which gave me a nice little stipend to essentially kind of run without a job for a year. And so I trained, and it was fun. I'm glad I had that chance.
That's really random. Pepsi?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know. Like I said, it's a story. It's a long story,
Yeah.
but I guess cut short. I met PepsiCo through Solomon.
Oh.
And I was running for Solomon at the time, and yeah, they were kind of looking to do some grassroots funding, and they were interested in the trail run market. And yeah, I met, essentially the guy I met was the vice president of global marketing, and so he gave me a stipend. I mean, I don't know if it's probably inappropriate to share that, how much, but
No,
it was
don't worry
enough
about
that I
that.
didn't. Yeah, it was enough that I was able to not have a job for a year. And so I took that and went with it, and lived that dream that I really wanted, right out of college.
So
And
where were
I
you
had
living at
success.
that time? Were you living in Carbondale still, or did you move back to the Front Range?
At that point, I had moved to Boulder.
Okay.
My best friend from Carbondale had also moved to Boulder, Ashley Arnold, who I'll probably talk about later with Trail Sisters.
Right.
She had moved out here about 2 months before me, and I was single, and just kind of, Carbondale was tiny, and I thought, well, heck, why not go to Boulder? It's, there's a lot of great runners there. My best friend's there right now.
Right.
I can always come back. So I picked up and went, and yeah, so that's kind of how that happened. So I was on the Front Range, and yeah, so I took off work for a year, and then as things kind of, I came to the close of that year, I was speaking with Julbo and some of my sponsors, and that's where I was able to, at that point, starting kind of create contract jobs for myself, because I realized my strengths and what I was good at, and what what I'd learned, what I was educated on. And I thought, well, heck, why not work for myself in the sense, and create things that work for me? And so the remote jobs started, and that's where the team manager stuff has come. And since then, I've really never been back in the standard 9 to 5 in the office, So
It's hard once you've had that taste of kind of working for yourself. Can you
Mhm.
imagine going back to that now?
Not yes and no. I mean, the only sometimes I think it would be enticing is because, I mean, I do work by myself in my home, or in the apartment, and I get lonely sometimes because I don't have anybody to talk to. I do everything by email,
Right.
and so it's like, you miss kind of having some interaction. So that's
I
the only thing that thinky, but otherwise, I love the freedom.
Yeah.
It's so worth it. It's worth a pay cut. It's worth so much. If you can make it work for yourself, I'd tell anybody you can get a remote job so you can have freedom to live your life and have a healthy lifestyle of getting in like normal physical activity each day. Like go for it.
Yeah.
It's worth it in the long run.
You're so right. So let's back up to, let's talk a little bit about that year that you're playing professional runner. Those are your words, not mine.
Oh yeah.
So was that 2013? Do you think that's when it was?
Um, yes, that it was like 2014,
Okay.
the end of 2013, because I left Trail Runner I think in like October of 2013 because
Okay.
I was gearing up for my first 50 mile, which was the North Face Endurance Challenge out in San Francisco.
Right. Yep.
So I went out there, did that, came back home, and that's kind of when essentially I moved to Boulder right around there. And then so the 2014 year was, at least midway or 3/4 of the year, I didn't have a job and just kind of,
Right.
just lived in Boulder and just ran around.
So, I mean, just leading up to that year where you get to travel around and be a professional runner, you've got some really solid results, especially if you look back the time you're in the East Coast, you're doing all those shorter runs, but you're coming in like first place, setting your course records. You've got a national championship under your belt, a 10K national championship under your belt, which
Mm-hmm.
you did in 2010, and you did at Laurel Springs, North Carolina. Which is funny
Mm-hmm.
because one of my former clients, Mike Spence, I think he did it in
Huh.
2008 or 2009. I can't remember. He did the same thing. He went back and got a championship there as well. That's
Oh,
pretty
nice.
rad that you guys both have
Uh-huh.
that in common.
Yeah.
Do you know
Yeah,
Mike?
I was gonna say that name sounds really familiar, but I can't put a face to him. If I Google him, I'm sure I'll be like, oh
Yeah.
yeah, that
He's an East
guy.
Coast guy too, and he ended up out here because he wanted to train with Chick Hislop at Weber State because Chick is like the steeplechase master, right? So he came out here to
Oh.
train with him, and he needed to do
Hmm.
strength work, and I was doing strength and conditioning work at Weber State at the time, and so that's
Okay.
how he and I got hooked up, and then I kind of like said, dude, you need to go trail run because it's rad. And
Hmm.
he's like, okay. And he goes and wins this championship. That's so cool that you guys have that in common.
Yeah, small world.
Yeah, it is. So, when you're starting to, really dabble in it, I mean, that first 50-mile debut, you go out to the North Face, you get 8th place or 14th place in 8 hours and 43 minutes. That's pretty darn fast.
Yeah, I did some training leading up to it. I didn't know what to expect. It was hard. I was wondering
Right.
what the heck I was doing after I'd done it. But I had gotten the ultra bug. I had gotten the ultra bug when I lived in Carbondale.
Right.
While I was working for Trail Runner, and that was the other thing. I guess that's why I kind of wanted to leave because I realized with ultras, like it wasn't like training short distance races. Like you had to put in more time. It was just
Right.
like like hands down, you have to put more time in if you want to run longer. And so that was the itch of why I'm like, well, I can't do both if I really want to play this professional role or just try it, whatever.
Right.
But but yeah, and way back when I talked to Howard about it, I'd always known about it. I mean, when I was doing all the short distance stuff, it was what made me like, 10Ks, 7 miles, stuff like that, 10-mile races. It was great, but I kind of, growing up from that miler background, I was getting so tired of going anaerobic in like, 30 seconds
Hmm.
off the line. You're
Right.
just kind of like, oh, I don't want to do it anymore.
Huh.
So I was so enticed by the idea of like, well, geez, you probably won't feel tired or start to hurt until you're at least like, 20 miles in. So it's like this
Huh.
ultra thing could be cool. So that's kind of, I was like, I'm going to try that. It's not going to hurt right away.
that's
So,
that's pretty cool. Just looking over your results, I mean, you've run a lot of races. You've run Chuck and Nut, Ice Age Trail, Silver Rush. You
mhm.
did the CCC over in France. You were 5th place there. You were first USA female.
Mhm.
That's impressive. And then you fast forward to 2015, Black Canyon 100K. Okay, that's your qualifier for Western States. Leona Divide, old school race that's been around forever. Oh, you did Western States.
Yeah, that was a rough day, that Westerns. That was my first real go at 100. And yeah, I learned that day how important nutrition is. So,
Oh, really? So tell us about that real quick.
I think, like I said, my background's short stuff. So, I've always struggled trying to figure out the right nutrition. I have, some friends in the ultra scene that they had their nutrition dialed. They figured it out from day one, but I had tried so many different things. And um, the Western States Endurance Run is a fabulous race, and it gets very hot there. And that
Yeah.
day it happened to be extremely hot. And when you're down in those canyons, when the heat hits you like that, your body doesn't really want to work. Like your stomach shuts off. You're not hungry. And I got into a point where my body just wanted to reject what I was putting into it.
Like
And
physically, like physically, like
yes.
yeah.
Oh yeah. I was chucking all kinds of stuff. I felt that I got to the top of, was it Michigan Bluff,
Right.
aid station. You come up the hill from the canyon, and I felt so bad. And my crew, Chrissy Mel was one of my crew people, and my good friend Blair Speed, and then my boyfriend Justin. They're there, they're all psyched, and I come up, I'm like, I'm just so sick, and they're like, look at me, I'm like, I'm so sorry.
Ah,
And then sure enough, they're like, why don't you try drinking this ginger ale? And I think I took one sip, it turned and just lost it. And they're like,
oh.
oh, okay. Like, you really don't feel good. I'm like, no. So, so yeah, I was determined to finish the race.
Right.
And so I essentially, walk, jog the rest of it, mainly walking a huge chunk of it in that second half. And,
Right.
I finished, I think it was like 27 and a half hours. And I went into that race wanting to be far below 24 hours. And, it just didn't play out that way. And that's okay. And,
Yeah.
it was an experience. I'm proud of myself for getting through it. And it's not always about how physically fit you are. It's about the mental side. It's about the stomach,
Right.
So, but it was great. I'm really glad I had the opportunity to do it. I'd love to go back one day and run it the way I ideally would like to, have the outcome that I'm hoping for. But,
Right.
we'll see. We'll see if that happens. But
Well, just looking at your results from like the other 100Ks you've done, so the CCC and Black Canyon, you're running those like super fast. So you definitely got the ability. But man, yeah, you're right. That heat is something else, huh? It shuts you
mhm.
down.
Yeah, completely. It's a game changer. People that can handle the heat, or their bodies respond well to it are definitely, I think, a one up on that. Um, I've kind of discovered I'm probably a little better in crappy conditions or when it's cold. I always
Right.
hated it growing up, but even racing in high school and college and cross country, I just remember always having really good days when it was cold. So I don't know what that says about me, but I'm like, oh, maybe I should aim for races that, benefit me more in terms of like weather and and
Yeah.
such. So,
Yeah, there's nothing
but
wrong with that at all. I mean, you can cherry pick all
mm,
you want and just have a great old time. So,
mhm.
looks like, just looking at your results. So, 2015, you have a really good run year. 2016, you're not racing as much, and looks like you maybe got hurt a little bit.
Oh yeah, that's last year was a probably the worst year I've ever had in terms of just running, or not being able to run. I'd gone back to the Leona Divide 50 in preparation. I was actually signed up for Western States in 2016, so I went there to prep for the race, and about mile 16 or so, I felt a really sharp, like, pull or tug. I don't know what you want. Just a sharp pain in my glute. And I was like, oh, that doesn't feel right. I'm like, all right, well, just keep going. Maybe it will go away. Because you know how, like, you feel little niggles all the time. You're like, it's
Yeah.
okay. It might be there for 5 minutes, then it's gone. Well, it was on and off the rest of the race. I was popping ibuprofen, which is not recommended. But I was determined to finish the darn race. So I was like,
Yeah.
I don't care. I was in second, I think, for most of the time. I'd seen the first place girl at one point and was kind of like, I might have a chance. And, I finished the race. I was on the adrenaline high, the endorphin, and sure enough, 10 minutes afterwards, I could barely walk. And
Oh,
yeah, I had ended up, I guess what they diagnosed as like a serious, severe strain of the sacrotuberous ligament, which is a weird little, ligament that's kind of in your butt / like hamstring, high up in your hamstring. And it didn't heal for quite a while. I mean, ligaments don't get blood flow, and
Yeah.
or at least a lot of it, and it just took forever. So I wasn't able to train the way I wanted to for Western State, so I pulled out of Western, which
Right.
really stinks because, I paid what, $500? That's down the tube.
Yeah, but it's the smart thing to do.
Yeah, I just like, oh, I can't believe it, and I wanted revenge on it so bad from the previous year, but
Right.
then the remainder of the year was kind of I felt like I had lost my gusto,
Right.
the thing I was aiming for. I put all my eggs in that basket. It was gone. I was really kind of bummed out, a bit depressed that, my year was kind of toasted. I wasn't really hungry to go do a lot of other races, because when you do ultras and you spend that much time out there on the trail for that race, like, you really want to be into that race. Otherwise, you're spending a ton of time out on the trail, like, not having fun. And then what's the point of doing it at all, right?
Oh yeah, totally. We interviewed oh gosh, I forgot his name. Eric Johnson. I don't know if you know who he is. He's he's like one of those guys that goes up to the Arctic and does those 300 and 400-mile races up there.
Oh, wow. Oh, man. Good for him.
So that was his point. He was like, well, if you're not having fun, why are you out here?
Right.
And for him, it totally made sense, because he's in these really, really just incredibly remote places up against just life-threatening.
Beep. Please stand by. We are experiencing technical difficulties.
Okay. Sorry about that. I was like, oh, shoot.
That's okay. So sorry for the technical difficulty, folks. That's never happened before.
That's what they all say, Joel.
That's just how it goes when you're doing these remote interviews. So as I was saying, Eric Johnson said, hey, if you're not having fun, it's just not worth it to be out here, especially if you're investing so much time. So I totally get what you're saying, and I think a lot of people totally understand that. So also in 2016, you've got something else going on, don't you?
Oh, well, the start of the Trail Sisters, if that's what you're getting at.
That's kind of what I'm hinting at, right?
Yeah, when the injury hit, so I launched Trail Sisters April 11th of 2016, and I wanted to do it before I went out to Leona, because I kind of wanted to just have that done. I didn't want to be thinking about it during the race and whatnot, and so I hurt myself with that strain, and so I came back, and I had that to focus on, which really kind of helped pull me away from the constant focus of like, oh, is it going to feel better today, or
Right.
So I put a lot of energy into that, and it hasn't quite been a year yet. So April 11th of 2017 will be one. I'm like, yay!
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it's come a really long way, and I mean, it has, only because of everybody out there that's supporting it and is interested in it, and so I have all of them to thank. I mean, it wouldn't be anything without all the people and their support. So I really appreciate that.
So let's back up. Let's talk about. So how did this come about? How did what's the genesis of Trail Sisters? How was it born?
Well, so when I lived in Carbondale and worked for Trail Runner, I had mentioned Ashley Arnold earlier. She was also a competitive runner, as well as I, and we just trained together. We were best buddies. We were also housemates. And then finally, she was the associate editor at Trail Runner, and then I worked there doing ad sales. So we were around each other all the time. So we were like best buddies. We got along great, and then we also bickered, like two sisters would, and so we called each other Trail Sisters. And so we had this relationship where we knew how to empower each other, and we were best buddies. Like if she needed somebody to pick her up that day so she'd get in a good workout, like I knew the exact thing to say that would trigger her to go have a good day, and vice versa. So we were just there for each other, and it was really special. That was something that was really cool. And through the year, we left Carbondale, and we're still great friends, and she's obviously a contributor on the site, and she's helping me with some other cool things that we're going to launch on the site quite soon. But I just eventually came to I thought about for years about, well, how can I use this somehow, or how can I present this to other women? And everybody should have a trail sister.
Right.
And last year I kind of, with the whole working remotely thing, I had some time, and I just got the bug to just go for it. It's like, well, I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to see what I can do. I'm like, if it flops, it flops. But at least, I'm trying to give back to the community that's treated me so well. And
right.
then I decided, well, I have the resources, the time. I knew all kinds of athletes from competing. I knew different companies and brands that hopefully would find it attractive and want to jump on board just by supporting the idea. And from working in this industry and competing and whatever you want to say, just being involved in it for so long, I really felt there was this lack of space to really, represent women, or, just that they could use a little bit more, especially in the, trail run specific. So it's like, I'm going to create something that hopefully inspires them, educates them, and provides some more empowerment. So it kind of just went from there and took off. But it was my original experience with Ashley that's like, everybody needs to have somebody like an Ashley or like a me, like they need to have a trail sister. And whether they have the ability to have, the physical presence of somebody every day on the trail or not, they could at least come to the website and, read something that, would inspire them to get out there or make them feel like they're part of a family or, involved in a community. I wanted to be able to provide, what Ashley and I had to everybody else. So I just went for it.
So you launched it a year ago. So the initial plan and concept stages of it, were you like, okay, we're going to put something out every day? Was that part of the plan, or is that just something that's kind of morphed into the reality of it now because it's so popular?
I started out thinking, first thing I did is, I had the idea, fleshed it out in some pieces of, scratch paper. And then I reached out to some of the women I knew that, had different voices, came from different spectrum in the trail running world, and, to see if they'd be interested in what the whole concept was about. I wanted partners, it wasn't like a Gina project. It was a project for all women.
Right.
And I wanted to align myself with other people that I knew would feel strongly about it and, wanted to share their voice. And so I reached out to them and kind of told them, look, there's no money in this. This is just out of the goodness of your heart and
right.
to inspire other women. If you want to be on board, I'd love to have you. And so I think at the time it was maybe five women or 6 women, and I asked them all to write something, and then I launched it. And my goal was to kind of put up one post each week.
Right.
I think it started with one post each week, and then turned into maybe 2 posts per week, and now we're at 3 or more. And it originally started just with those core contributors, and as it's kind of gained popularity, like I said, it's for everybody. It's not just one type person. I invite anybody that has a story or a message, as long as it kind of fits in our, in with what we're trying to speak about,
Do you guys have you have ambassadors, right?
Yes. Yep. I got to the point where it's like, it doesn't just need to be, the same 5 or 6 women telling stories or giving
right.
advice. It should be from anybody, even if you're not the best writer, it doesn't mean that you can't share your experience or story. You might have something really great to say.
Oh, yeah.
Or something, really important that needs to be shared. And, I went to school for TV film. I didn't go to school for journalism. I'm not an editor by any means, but I'm happy to sit down, take, these guest articles and, open it up to ambassadors and take what they have and kind of, make it so that people can at least somewhat understand it. But I like that everybody has their different style.
Right.
I like that everybody has a different voice and it comes through. And I think that's important because there's so many different people out there that not the same 5 people can reach all those, everybody that's out there. You need to have different voices to speak to different people. So I think of the site, we really are. We're just a giant community of women that, want to be there for each other and empower each other. So it's like, let's have ambassadors, if you're really into the site and you really want to help it grow, and you can produce essentially like 4 articles per year, 1 per quarter, and
Right.
I asked them, like, what do you want to bring to the table? How do you want to help, help your local community, help your, the women you can speak to, and so I was like, it's not made for one type person, it's made for everybody. And yeah, so I've kind of let the community take it themselves and help grow it. And I think that's important.
That's rad, because it seems like it's just taken off and it's huge now,
I hope so. I hope it keeps
right?
taking off. I'm like, I don't know where the end of the road is. I hope there is no end of the road, but
Right.
I know one of the things you'll probably ask me is where you see it going. And to be honest, like right now, I'm taking it month by month in a sense. I don't know where we'll really end up. I just hope that I can continue to inspire women, and I hope to see women's presence in the sport grow. And that
Right.
means, that can be just interest, that can be women racing, more products and, effort to promote women from larger companies, like all across the spectrum. Women actually are, the largest or the fastest growing consumer in the outdoor industry. And I think, we should have our voices heard, and I want to provide somewhat of a platform for that,
So,
so yeah.
so besides putting out, you're basically almost putting out content every day now, and you guys have a really strong social media following. So, what else do you see Trail Sisters maybe doing in the future besides that? I mean, you guys going to have events? What else is in your future, especially maybe for this summer?
Yeah, well, that's the most exciting piece. So it's not quite up on the website yet, so I'm still working on it. But we will be doing a summer fall road tour across the United States. Plan is to, it'll be from essentially May 1st through the end of October, and just kind of traveling around. And I'll put the schedule up. We're going to be on the east, and then obviously we'll be back out in the west and the Pacific Northwest, and make a big trip around California. And the hope is to, I plan on stopping at different events that are out there. I know I'll be at Hard Rock and some others, as well as stopping at probably over 30 different specialty retailers to just, present the Trail Sister story and provide them with some, tidbits about, the trail running space. So some education and like I said, try to speak to them about camaraderie in their own communities, and inspire them to, try out trail running if they haven't, and to continue to do it if they're interested already. But yeah, I feel that in person relationships, or just, meeting people in that sense, is way more obviously personable than just doing stuff online. And so getting out in the community and being there first person and be like, this is what it's about, this is what, we should focus on, look at things this way. I think it's really important to do that. So I don't want Trail Sisters to just be this online, impersonable thing. I like to get out and actually talk to people in the community and share my vision in that way. So yeah, road tour this summer.
That's exciting. I mean, you're going to use your new ProMaster, or most people know as a Sprinter. So you're building that out right now, right? How's that been?
Yeah. So for this, I thought it would be much smarter to just go all in with a ProMaster, whatever, Sprinter van, and build it out, which has been definitely interesting. I'm not very handy at all. I thought I was really clever in high school. I took advanced wood shop. Both my grandfathers
really,
they were really into woodworking. So I really enjoyed it. So it was fun. Actually, side note, this is like fun fact. I was the only chick in the class. I was a senior in high school, and so I was the only girl in the advanced woodshop class, but I got the highest grade. So there's that.
Course.
So little. So I was stoked for that. But anyway, I thought I'd be good. I thought I'd be good at building out this van, and it's not easy at all. So my boyfriend actually is really taking the reins, and it's a fun project for him. So we work together, but
that's
he's kind
cool.
of the mastermind.
So where are you guys getting most of your resource ideas from for that build out? Do you go to a specific website, or are you following a certain YouTuber? How is that?
Yeah, right. To be honest, we've just like hashtag van life. There's so
Right.
many little things to follow on Instagram, and I do have a friend that actually used to work at Trail Runner, um, Julie and Chris Parker. Actually, he writes for Rock and Ice, and I
Mm-hmm.
think he actually works over at Black Diamond now. But they bought a Sprinter van and decked it out, and so I've been paying her for tidbits. And there's some other people up here in the area. Fred Marmister, great. He's a
He's a good
photographer.
photographer. Yeah.
Yeah, he's excellent. Ski, oh man, trail running. He's done a lot of stuff for Patagonia, Buff.
Yeah.
He's all over the place. But yeah, he actually built out a Mercedes Sprinter. I think either 2 years ago now, maybe. And so spoken to him. So just try to pick up pieces from all kinds of people. But until you get in there and you're doing it yourself, my gosh, you still have tons of questions, even though you
Right.
think you figured it out. But it will be a cool home for 6 months,
Yeah.
officially leaving. Our apartment is, as of May 1st, we're out. So, we'll see what happens at, May 6th. I'm sure we'll be back in Boulder, doing more work, but we'll have to get a new apartment and whatnot. So,
Holy
but it will be
cow.
fun it'll be fun for 6 months to
Yeah.
just kind of travel around and
And spread
meet new
the
people.
spread the gospel. That's so rad to hear
Yeah.
that. Is that a little
Yeah.
nerve wracking knowing that you're not going to have a home to come back to, or is it kind of freeing?
Um, a little both. It's nerve-wracking, 'cause yeah, everything, like we'll put everything in storage. And I mean right now I ship hats and shirts from my house. So I'm like, how am I gonna do this from the van?
Oh yeah, good point, right?
So yeah, so that's kind of funny. But yeah, it's weird not to have a home base. I mean, a chunk of it, I know we'll stay with a lot of friends and family throughout the trip. So it's not going to
Right.
be completely every day in the van for 6 months. But I have to sell my car. I can't just keep a car. It's very
True.
old anyway.
Right.
But my entire life, I was actually telling my boyfriend last night that I'm really sad I have to sell my car. I've had it since 2007 when I
Oh,
first drove out to get my internship at the OTC.
right.
I've always been a bit of a gypsy. I've moved around a lot and had lots of different jobs, and giving up my vehicle in that sense, that's taken me pretty much this entire chunk of my life as to
Right.
where I am now.
That was
It's
your
kind of
one
scary.
that was your one constant, right? For the last 10
Yes.
years.
I could fit everything I owned into my Xterra, and it's kind of like, oh, I have to, it's so old that to house it somewhere and pay car insurance on something that's not going to be driven for 6 months. And it has 170,000 miles. It's time to go. But I'm like, oh, I don't want to sell it. It's a part of me.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. But it's something you got to do to have that experience that you're going to have this summer.
right.
Spreading the Trail Sisters gospel. That's so cool. So, what have been some of the most popular articles on Trail Sister? What has really struck a chord with their community?
Ooh, that's a good question. You know, uh, the women specific issues that really they seem to drum up a lot of on the back end. If I look at the analytics,
Right.
a lot of things like that. Body image is huge.
Okay.
um yeah, and I think there are things that should be talked about for sure. So those seem to be huge. Anything that kind of ruffles the feathers a bit, anything that's a little bit of controversy seems to always get some love. Trying to think of anything particularly. I mean, I know Sandy's article long time ago, the critique of the female runner. So,
Oh
focused
yeah.
on body. That one was, that was pretty huge. Eating disorders.
Right.
That's another, it's pretty rampant in the sport. And not just
So really,
trail
is
running,
it really
in general.
that big in the trail running community? I mean, you see it from that side. I don't, because from all the guys I know, we like eating ice cream and drinking beer.
Yeah,
But the
you
flip
know,
side of it, you know, why is that? Do you think? Why is that so prevalent in the trail community?
well, I mean, I think I mean, heck, I've seen it ever since high school and college, and so I think in just general in the running space, it just is huge. I don't think it's a secret or anything, but I mean, Ashley's written a very large article about it. But Ashley and I both went through our own spouts of eating disorders. And by talking about that and telling, spreading our message and our experience, we've met a lot more women that have had some version of it. It doesn't have to be the extreme to
Right.
bulimia or anorexia. There's all kinds of versions of, body
Like,
dysmorphia and things like you can go on. But it's just, there's so much media out there that, it pictures women that are, very, very petite. And,
right,
that's just their genetics and that's just the way they are. And that's A-okay,
right,
but a lot of women think that they have to look a certain way. And you do see a lot of media, they don't always choose people that don't fit a certain mold. And, people just start to believe. I mean, that was one part of the TV film degree, the ethics class was super important because the things we went through, it's unbelievable, like how much a picture can mess with somebody's mind. I mean, everybody has a TV, everybody has a web, or everybody has a computer in their house, and you sit there and you watch it, you read things, and it's a bunch of marketing. You got to be able to turn it off or to just decipher for yourself what's real and what's being fed to you. I mean, news stories every day are, or biased in some sort.
true,
They're written a certain way to make you think a certain thing, and some
right,
people don't understand that, and that's okay. But it's just, so I guess going in the larger scale as I go off on a tangent, that it's, people are, we're all emotional and we have our faults and we see things where, well, maybe I'm supposed to be doing this. We have our
right.
doubts, and when there's media coming at you that you're supposed to look a certain way for a certain sport, it's really easy to get roped into trying to fit a mold.
True.
So,
That is. You just kind of, because the trail running community is so rad. And you're just
oh, it's
hoping,
awesome.
you're just like, come on, please, let's, you hope it's not as rampant in the trail community as it is, say, like general population or even on the road running side, which I could see it being much more prevalent there. Because you got to get down, you got to have a certain weight so you can run your splits right on the number. But then if you move to the trail side, you're like, hopefully it's not as bad. You can answer that question a lot better than I can.
hmm
But man, that makes me sad to hear that.
Yeah, you hope that, it's not like, it's impossible to know exact numbers. I mean, I
Right.
could put out a Trail Sisters survey and ask, and see what comes back, which actually might be a good survey for further, research and such.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of trail runners may have come from either, a track background or a road background. And
Right.
like I said, it's, obviously not everybody has an issue with that, but and I wouldn't say it's just competitive either. 'Cause I know people that are more even back of the packers that have had issues.
Oh
It
yeah.
just ties into wanting to fit a mold and feel accepted and feel looked upon as if, you fit a certain look. And
Right.
it's sad, but hopefully, with some of these articles and, women from across the spectrum talking about it, they can reassure other ladies, like, it's okay. You, like, be you, love you, take care of you. Like, we're not here to judge. We're just happy that you're outside being active and enjoying life. That's what it
Right.
should be about.
Where do you find you're getting most of your like viewership participation from? Is it here in the West or is it kind of evenly dispersed on the U.S.?
It's kind of funny. I'll like watch the analytics when I post something and watch the real time, and you see like bubbles pop up all over the place.
Right.
It's kind of fun. It's ridiculous, but a lot in the West. I'd say probably more so in the West. But I mean, I'll see bubbles pop up in Maine. I'll see bubbles pop up in Florida. It is dispersed throughout the U.S. and there's some international bites as well, which
Oh,
is
good.
nice to see. Yeah, I mean, not a ton. I mean, like I said, we're not even a year yet, so we're still going. But up in Canada, even BC area, I'll get some love from that area. But yeah, I'd say mainly more the West or New England or more in the South, the Southeast. I don't have as much coming from Middle America, but it doesn't mean that there's not trail people out there, trail sisters there. There's just larger amounts of trail runners, I think, in the West, in the Pacific Northwest as well. So
Right. And just with
um,
you're headquarters is here in the West.
Hmm.
Obviously, you're going to have
Right.
more viewership and participation coming out of there. So, but when you're going to go around, you're going to travel, you're going to spread the Trail Sisters gospel at all these
Hmm.
events.
Hmm.
So then,
Yeah.
what? So then, what's the next step though?
Well, yeah, hopefully, on this road trip, I'm able to, make more people aware that the site or, this community even exists. So that's
Right.
hopefully just to grow the community. So that's one, point of the trip, and, just to inspire more people. That's all I want. I want to help to grow it. What comes next after the road trip? Heck, I'm just gonna keep doing what I'm doing. I know we're gonna start I guess the big thing is we're gonna start peer review soon.
Okay.
I get a lot of questions from women, asking about, what's best for this, what's best for
Yeah.
that, and so actually she was, the associate editor at Trail Runner, so she'll be the associate editor essentially for Trail Sisters and
Right.
the gear reviews, which is great. So that's coming, and yeah, for the time being, that's our main focus, and then just try to keep growing it. I just kind of connected with the people over at the Y East Wolfpack out in the Pacific Northwest, and they've wanted to do their own, female-focused training group, and so we
Right.
partnered to do the Y East Trail Sisters. And that'd be cool to do a few other places, if there's interested, groups. But yeah, kind of just keep spreading it. I want to see more women out in the trails. I know a lot of women are interested, but they're fearful. They don't know a ton about it, and there's not a ton of media outlets out there pushing things to this like niche market. And I don't see why I can't be, or Trail Sisters can't be, the place for them to get that information. So just
Yeah,
keep growing right now. All I
for
want to do is
sure.
keep growing.
So
So.
let me ask you a question because this has come up in a couple of our interviews recently because we've just happened to talk to a couple really great um, female runners here along the Wasatch Front, and
Mhm.
we always ask them, "How did you get into trail running?" And we have a couple of big running groups here along the Wasatch Front, which the biggest is the Wasatch Mountain Wranglers, and they
Mhm.
somehow
Mhm.
fell in with just a small subsection of the Wranglers. So they knew somebody and they wanted to go join these group runs and they're always so nervous about joining a group run because they're like, well, I don't want to be the slow person, right? And then
Right.
once they go and do it, then they're like, I can't believe I waited that long to do it because
Right.
it's so empowering to join that group. But they were so fearful because, well, I didn't want to be seen as the slow person, or I didn't want to be seen as, oh, here's this woman runner. I'm going to be slow. I'm going to be rejected because these guys have been around for a long time. But in the reality, it's the exact opposite. They get so embraced by it. Do you get that question a lot? Like, how do people come to the website, Facebook, Instagram, and say, "Hey, I want to be a trail runner. How do I do that?"
Yeah, I definitely get some of those questions, and a lot of times like, hey, I want to run with somebody, or I'm going to this area. Do you know somebody I can run with? And I'm always like, man, I'd love to like create some kind of a kind of like a database, but it's really tricky, and since how the website works, and what's out there, the trolls and people trying to get information. So I'm trying to always like, how can I create this database for people to meet up, or
Right.
without putting anybody at risk if they want to share their email address or whatever. So
True.
so I've yet to kind of figure all that out, but I get questions like that quite often, as their Trail Sisters group here or there. And I do know a lot of people. And so what I try to do is I try to connect them with the local run store in that area, or if
Right.
there is a local established group, because I think it's important for people to blend with the communities they're in. Some just don't know that there's things that already exist. And so I try to connect them with those clubs or groups, or the store if I don't know any run clubs there. They can usually go to their local specialty retailer, and they can usually direct them from there. But yeah, so that's kind of my go-to, because I know what it's like to run by yourself, and when you're looking for a group, especially if you need that motivation. So I always try to kind of come up with some kind of answer for them.
Right. You
And
almost
then,
need like a local chapter of Trail Sisters, right?
right. And that is kind of one of the things I've been toying around with. But the problem I always run into is, I take a lot of pride in, what Trail Sisters is and how far it's gone, and to kind of um, assign people that I haven't met, or tell me they're going to do a good job,
Right.
if they can lead a chapter. I want to believe that, and I'm sure most of them probably would do an excellent job, but um, we have some pillars and a mission statement, and I would want to make sure these women would be able to um, inspire others, have them lead the healthy lifestyles, push the adventuring outdoors and the conservation of, protecting the Earth's playground. So like making sure they would, enforce those ideas
Right.
in the group. And then additionally, if they're going to start a group, they have to be accountable and keeping like, okay, every Wednesday we're going to meet and blah, blah,
Right.
and it's a big job. It's not
It
a
is.
tiny little, it's not a tiny thing. And so I'm kind of like, how can I can't manage all those people to
No.
do that, and so I'm
No.
like, how do you manage chapters and do that? And I'm trying to figure that out. But a lot of the responsibility a lot of the trail ambassadors have is kind of like looking out for their locals and trying to, like, that's almost like a responsibility I put on them, in a sense, like if they can bring women together, and maybe that will be the next step down the line. Because the ambassadors I bring on, we go through a little bit of process, and I learn more about them, and so I get to a point where I feel like, okay, I can trust them to lead this, this group here. Because
Right.
like I said, I don't want Trail Sisters to get a bad rap. I don't want
No.
there to be any cattiness. I don't want there to be, it's supposed to be for everybody. We're there
Right.
for each other. We're one big family,
That's probably the best way to
So,
handle it. Is just kind of push it out there through your ambassadors, and your
right.
ambassadors are known on your website, and
Mhm.
if somebody's trying to find that person or that group to get into, if they can search on your website and hey, there's an ambassador in my area, then they can contact the ambassador. Because I know our ambassador for this area, Tara Warren, she does a great job. She is so involved.
Oh, she's awesome.
And
She is so cool.
yeah,
She's great.
she's a good kid too, man. She is so rad. She's out there
Yeah.
running all the time. She's super positive and just the nicest woman. Really, she is.
Oh yeah, no, she's great. I had the opportunity meeting her this year. When I did a road trip earlier, just to the Pacific Northwest area, because I had never really been out there. And I have some friends out that way, and I stopped in Ogden along the way, and had the chance to have lunch with her, and she was incredible. So on the road trip this year, I don't have the dates exactly scheduled yet. That will come out shortly. But one of my plan is to stop in the Salt Lake area and up and head towards Ogden and Park City, and to make sure I get to spend some time with her and the other ladies in that area.
Right.
Crazy Mother Runners, Chicks Run Utah. You guys have an excellent group. So
Well, yeah,
I'd
what's
love
crazy is that in our area, we got the Crazy Mother Runners, Chicks Run Utah, which is Melissa Solomon, who we did an interview with her a couple weeks ago. She was on the podcast. She has a really amazing story. How she lost 120 pounds over the course of 4 years, and she's about to do her first 100-miler at Zion next week. She's got a great story.
Good for her.
And
good luck to her. That's awesome.
Super positive attitude. The Crazy Mother Runners are always out running, and they've got a good story as well. So I think that you've done a really good job of like curating your ambassadors, right? Especially for our area. So if that can be said about all the other areas, that'd be a great way for people to, contact those ambassadors if they're interested in, hey, how do I get into trail running? What trails are good to run on? Talk to them about gear, talk to them just about how to integrate into the community too. So I think that's a great thing that you've done for the trail run community. I think it's awesome.
Well, thank you. I hope so. Like I said, I mean, I'm 34. I just turned 34, and
You're so old. Oh my gosh.
Well, but I mean, up to this point, like the world of running has been very kind to me, and I've had lots of great opportunities, and
Right.
I've learned a lot from it, and I still hope to do a lot more in it. But I don't see any reason. Like, this is one way that I would like to give back to all the great stuff I received, and hopefully create some good opportunities for other women, and
Right.
or just get them psyched on it.
You totally are. I mean,
Yeah,
you're
so
doing an
I
awesome
hope
job of it.
so.
And
Well,
you're
thank you.
putting out those cool trucker hats. What else can people find on the Trail Sisters site besides trucker hats and the ambassadors? Anything else?
Oh, well, we're doing the Where to Run series, which is pretty cool. Anybody can
Ooh,
send in about their local area,
right on.
or if they're interested. Yeah, because I'm trying to create a really fun database of like all these different cities wherever. You don't have to be a great writer or anything like that.
Right.
It's pretty simple actually. I'll give you the guidelines and you just kind of fill it in. But
But how do
if you're
people search that then? How is that archived? Is that alphabetical? Is it by state? How can
um
people search through that?
there's a column on the site called Where to Run, and we don't have a ton currently. I mean, we have enough that you can scroll through and see what we've got, but eventually we'll break it down and have it alphabetically ordered so you can see what's out there.
Okay.
But yeah, I hope to grow that. But that's pretty cool. And we do the Ask the Trail Sisters. So if anybody has any question, a lot of people have questions and they're either scared to ask because it's a tricky subject, or they're embarrassed for other people to know they're asking it or whatever. But we have a place on the, just go to About and then Contact, and you can write in your question. It's completely anonymous, and I'll send that question out to the ambassadors and the core contributors, and the girls will send back their feedback, and then I put it in the post, and I'll post it online. Like I said, it's all unanimous, so you don't know, who wrote it or whatever. But
Right.
a lot of the questions people have are questions that other people might want to know about. So
That's right. Yeah.
so that's kind of cool. But yeah, then we have a little shop if people want to support it. That's awesome. I think it's pretty cool. If you're running down the trail and then you happen to see somebody else with the Trail Sisters hat on, I mean, you instantly feel like you have a connection with them, and
Yeah.
give them a wave, and they're going to wave back because
Right.
it's something that you have in common, and
Or you can stop
something
and
you
talk to
value.
them.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the kind of like community I'm trying to grow and create. So but yeah.
Well, I think you're doing
Um,
an awesome job. I'm excited about your summer road trip. That
oh,
one, I mean, you're doing an awesome job spreading the gospel of the Trail Sisters. Two, I'm excited to hear about van life and how you
yeah.
adapt to that and what struggles you have and how you overcome them. So hopefully you're going to have like a little side project blog going on talking about van life.
Oh yeah, I'm already pretty worried about the bathroom situation. Like we get like a compostable like toilet,
Oh
and
man, you
living
guys
with
went out of your way and got a
yeah.
compostable toilet? Really? So it's on the inside, right?
Oh yeah, so it's on the inside. It's like a little removable one. It's not
Right.
like connected to the van, but I mean, for a chunk of it, we'll be with people, so you can use inside toilets, and we'll
Right.
be in town, so you can find your local coffee shop. But
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, there'll be times when Justin and I are, out in, the middle of nowhere for a while. I'm like, oh, it's gonna be awkward. But
I think you're going to go over that pretty quick, you know?
yeah. I've been with him for 3 years now, so it shouldn't be that weird anymore. But there'll be funny stories, I'm sure. That's how
That,
it goes. But if there weren't any funny stories, it wouldn't be adventure at all.
that's
So.
right. So I'm excited for you guys to do that. That'll be cool. So you're going to have all the schedule up on the Trail Sisters site here when?
By April 15th at the latest. So
Okay.
we're working on putting the page together right now. I'm finalizing some partnerships with some brands that, are excited about it as well.
Okay.
And yeah, so that should be up in the next week or so.
All
So,
right. So
I'll
when you
make
come
sure
through
to.
our area, we'll definitely help promote it as much as we can for the Ogden area, the Salt Lake area, the Utah area, southern Utah or southern Idaho, and then we'll be more than happy to help promote it across the U.S. as well, because I mean we really believe in it. We think that you're doing a great job. You got some super rad ambassadors. I hope that you get more traction out of it across the U.S. and even internationally too, because I think it's such a great idea.
I hope so too. That's the goal. I hope if people are enjoying, reading what they read on the site, that they'll share it with their friends and let other women know. And that's the other thing. Yes, it's called Trail Sisters, but there's content on the site that's not, only women specific. There's a lot of things that can be shared for both sides.
Well, no, there's good content on there, period. And I try to read it as often as I can. And
Awesome.
The only reason I don't read something is because it's like there's too much to read that day. Like I've got your article, I've got something on iRun Far I need to read. I've got something on 5 other websites I need to read, and then all of a sudden you're like behind. And
right.
You're like, screw it, I'm not going to read anything today. I'm going to wait until I'm going to start over again tomorrow.
Right, there you go.
Yeah, but guys should be reading that stuff too, because it's just good content, and you get good stories, and then also you get this perspective from the other side, from the female side, which I think more guys need to do that. They need to go out of their way to kind of understand what that view is like, what they're experiencing, because it's so male dominated in the culture.
Right, and that's exactly it. I think it's important. It doesn't mean like it's just awareness, and it's not meant to be like, oh, guys and girls are better than guys, or guys are better. It's nothing like that. We're all out there, we're all doing the same thing, but
it's
really cool to have a place where women can share their voice and speak from the women's perspective. And I think that's important, just to have a healthy sport, a healthy industry. It's good for everybody. It's a win-win across the board.
It is, and you guys are doing an awesome job of it.
Well, cool. Well, thank you.
Well, you're welcome. Hey, I appreciate you jumping on the show today. I'm sorry that little technical glitch happened in the middle of the show, because we had 45 minutes of really just kind of great background on you before we jumped into the Trail Sister side of it. So I'm hoping that I can find that on my computer somewhere.
I hope so.
Yeah, me too, because that was some good stuff that you gave us there. Hey, thank you very much, and I look forward to your tour.
Cool. Thank you.
If you stop in at Utah, we'll try to come see you, get you on the mic again, so we can hear about your experience, especially your van life experience. And I'm looking forward to it for sure.
Well, cool. Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to speak to you in person, and thank you for taking the time to bring me on board with Trail Manners. And I'm looking forward to hearing this, when you publish it or put it out. So yeah, thanks so much for everything. And you can be sure that you'll definitely be getting a note when I have the Ogden, Salt Lake area, scheduled, and hopefully, we can meet up in person.
All right.
So thanks again for everything.
Yeah, you're welcome. That sounds good. And okay, thanks for listening to this episode. You can find more information out at Trail Sisters. Is it .com or .net?
It doesn't matter. It can be both.
Oh, all right.
I own both. Yeah, so there you go.
You're such a savvy marketer. That's rad. Also, you can follow her on Instagram, Facebook. You got the Twitter too?
Yes, I do.
All right.
Trail_talk.
Oh, awesome. Hey, again, thank you very much for jumping on the show today, Gina. I'll let you go get back to your sprinter build out, because I know you still got to wrap that up. And we'll see you here shortly when you come through town, all right?
Sounds great. Thanks again.
Thank you for listening to the Trail Manners podcast. We'd like to thank Gina Lucrezi of Trail Sisters for taking the time to join us today. You can check more of Trail Sisters out at trailsisters.net. We also want to encourage everybody to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Trail Manners, or swing by our website at trailmanners.com. There you can swing by our store page, check out some gear, or hit us up on the contact page. Let us know what you want to see, who you want to hear, or even if you would like to be on the show. Until next time, this is Eric Manning with Joel Hatch reminding you, you don't get what you wish for, you get what you work for. Now go get it.